Most men are rich for a season and poor by the grave. Their sons inherit dust, not crowns. Their wealth dies because it was never rooted in psychology. It was rooted only in greed. The question we will solve today is this: how can you build wealth that outlives you, wealth that your enemies cannot destroy, wealth that becomes eternal? Let Machiavelli be your guide. Listen closely. The greatest weakness of men is their hunger for speed. They see gold and want it today, not tomorrow. They hear of fortunes won overnight and believe themselves destined to be the next chosen one. But here lies the trap: sudden wealth is not a gift of fortune. It is her cruelest deception. Fortune grants you riches quickly only to watch you lose them with even greater speed. The streets of every city are filled with the corpses of merchants who once tasted glory for a season. They made quick profit, they boasted of their brilliance, and in their arrogance, they mistook luck for skill. Then, as quickly as fortune gave, she withdrew. Their coffers turned hollow, their reputations ruined, and their children inherited debts instead of crowns. You must understand, my friend, wealth that comes suddenly is like a storm. It arrives with thunder and departs with silence. True wealth, the kind that survives generations, is not born of gambling nor from blind ambition. It is born of calculation, discipline, and the patience to think like a builder of empires. The foolish man chases gold. The wise man builds structures that command gold to flow to him endlessly. You must think as an architect of dynasties, not as a beggar who stumbles upon a coin. Consider this: when a man wins riches by chance, he does not know how to defend them. He does not understand the roots that sustain fortune, and thus he cannot prevent them from being cut. Like a man who finds himself suddenly seated on a throne without an army to defend it, he is doomed to lose it to the first rival who dares to strike. Sudden wealth without structure is no different than power without soldiers. It appears strong, but it collapses when tested. The foundation of lasting wealth is order. Order in how you earn, order in how you save, and order in how you pass it forward. Discipline is the iron wall that shields fortune from being stolen or squandered. Yet men despise discipline, for it feels slow, it feels burdensome. They prefer the thrill of quick gain, but quick gain is nothing more than a mirage that vanishes when you reach for it. A wise man accepts this truth. The greatest fortunes are invisible before they are undeniable. While the fool flaunts his newfound riches in taverns and markets, the cunning man builds quietly, reinvesting, strengthening, preparing. The fool desires applause today. The strategist desires control tomorrow. One dies admired for a moment, the other rules for centuries. Look to the dynasties of history. Do you think their castles, their armies, their treasuries appeared overnight? No. They were crafted by men who were willing to suffer patience. They built brick by brick, each generation laying stones for the next. This is why their names endure, while the names of gamblers vanish into the dust of forgotten graves. You must resist the intoxication of sudden success. Understand that when gold pours into your hands too easily, it is a test, not a blessing. Will you guard it with wisdom, or will you waste it in vanity? Will you expand it into a system that cannot be destroyed, or will you spend it like a fool who mistakes the present for eternity? Gold without power is a fragile treasure. Men often believe that wealth alone is enough to command respect, to build dynasties, to ensure security. But they are mistaken. Gold is not the shield, nor the sword. It is only the bait. Without power to guard it, wealth is like a banquet laid out in the open fields, inviting every hungry wolf to feast upon it. I have seen it many times. A man becomes rich, yet remains weak in influence. He builds his fortune in silence, but he forgets that envy is the shadow that follows all prosperity. Soon, rivals circle him. Politicians tax him, thieves rob him, flatterers deceive him, and false allies drain him. Why? Because wealth alone does not inspire fear, nor does it demand loyalty. It is the man who holds authority, the man whose hand commands respect, who keeps his riches secure. Understand this: wealth attracts attention, but only power dictates what that attention will bring. A man without power will find his gold consumed by the very crowd he wished to impress. But a man with power can wield his fortune like a weapon, a tool to build alliances, to command soldiers, to control markets, and to silence rivals. Wealth is useful, yes, but only when it is protected by influence. What then is power? It is not always the throne, nor the crown, nor the army at your command. Power can be reputation, it can be strategic alliances, it can be the perception that you are untouchable. A merchant who controls the ports wields more power than a noble who owns land far from the markets. A man who is feared by his enemies, respected by his peers, and trusted by his allies holds more true power than one who possesses chests of gold but no voice in the councils of men. This is why I say, build power before you build fortune. For if you have power, fortune will follow you. But if you have fortune without power, you are nothing but prey. Ask yourself, when men look at you, do they see someone they can take from, or someone they must bow to before approaching? Consider the rulers of old. The Medici family of Florence, for example, did not rely on gold alone. They built banks, yes, but they also bought influence, placed their sons in the church, surrounded themselves with allies, and controlled the very pulse of the city. Their money was valuable only because their power made it untouchable. Without that power, they would have been no more than wealthy merchants, vulnerable to the envy of princes and the plots of rivals. The lesson is this: wealth without power is like a castle without walls. It may look impressive from afar, but it will not withstand the first attack. When you gain riches, your first task is not to display them, it is to fortify them. You must ask, who are my enemies? Who are my allies? How will I ensure that those around me depend on me more than I depend on them? Power is not about having the most gold. It is about ensuring that others need your favor to gain theirs. Wealth, no matter how carefully built, is always at risk of collapse if the hands that inherit it are weak. A father may spend his life constructing an empire, only for his son to squander it in a single generation because he was raised in softness. This is the greatest tragedy of dynasties, not that enemies destroy them, but that heirs lack the discipline to defend what was given. Do not make the mistake of raising children in comfort without strength. Comfort is poison. It makes men soft, careless, and blind to the dangers of the world. A boy who has never been denied grows into a man who cannot endure loss. A girl who has never seen struggle grows into a woman who trusts too easily in the loyalty of others. The wealth you leave them becomes a feast for vultures, because they do not know how to protect it. If you wish for your fortune to survive, you must teach the next generation to see the world as it is, not as they wish it to be. Teach them that kindness without strategy is weakness. Teach them that mercy, if given too freely, invites exploitation. Teach them that appearances of virtue are necessary, but reality must be governed by cold calculation. They must understand that men will flatter them, deceive them, and attempt to drain their wealth under the mask of friendship. Only a ruthless mind can resist this. Ruthlessness does not mean cruelty for pleasure. It means clarity in judgment. It is the ability to cut off those who are leeches, to deny trust to the unworthy, to say no when yes would be easier. It is the strength to make decisions that preserve the family line, even when those decisions seem harsh in the eyes of outsiders. A ruler who cannot say no is ruled by those he seeks to govern. A wealthy man who cannot resist pity will soon find himself poor. History is filled with the ruins of families who forgot this lesson. One generation builds through sweat and sacrifice, the next enjoys luxury, and the third is left with nothing. Why? Because the heirs believed fortune was eternal, when in truth fortune is always waiting to slip away. Only discipline and strategy can chain her to a dynasty. You must therefore shape your heirs not to love luxury, but to master it. Let them enjoy wealth, yes, but let them understand it is a tool, not a toy. Give them responsibility early, let them taste both failure and victory, and never shield them from consequence. A fortune guarded by ruthless heirs grows stronger with each generation. A fortune left to the soft dies before its time. Raise them to understand masks. Let them learn to smile while plotting, to give with one hand while protecting with the other, to appear generous while guarding the family's true interests. The world rewards those who seem good but act with calculation. If your children master this duality, they will not only preserve what you built, they will expand it. Gold fills your chest, but reputation fills your name. And between the two, reputation is the treasure that endures. Wealth can be stolen, taxed, or squandered, but reputation is more difficult to erase. It lingers in the minds of men long after the coins are spent, and it shapes how the world treats you, your children, and the generations that follow. A man with no reputation may possess riches, but he is like a candle burning in the wind, seen briefly, then extinguished without memory. But a man with a reputation, whether for greatness or for ruthlessness, is remembered, feared, and respected even in absence. In truth, reputation is invisible gold, a currency that multiplies itself without ever being spent. Think of this. A banker who is seen as trustworthy does not need to prove his wealth. Men hand him their fortunes because his reputation commands confidence. A ruler who is known to be decisive does not need to fight as often because his enemies hesitate before striking. A family whose name carries honor and strength does not need to beg for alliances. Doors open before them simply because of the weight their name carries. Reputation becomes a fortress that guards the treasury, even when you are not there to defend it yourself. But do not mistake reputation for mere kindness or virtue. The world remembers what is useful to it, not what is moral. A reputation for generosity can bring loyalty, yes, but a reputation for strength and cunning will bring fear, and fear is the stronger guard. You must therefore craft your reputation deliberately, shaping how others see you as carefully as you manage your wealth. Appearances are the armor that protects your dynasty from envy and betrayal. Your heirs must inherit more than coin. They must inherit a name that commands respect. A fortune passed down without reputation is like a sword without a blade. It looks valuable, but it has no true power. Teach your children to guard their names with the same ferocity they guard their gold. Teach them that every action builds or destroys reputation. To betray promises too easily, to associate with the dishonorable, to be careless in public conduct. These are cracks in the walls of reputation, and once broken, they are difficult to repair. Consider the great families of Italy. Some held power not because they had the most wealth, but because their reputation was so deeply rooted that it intimidated their rivals. Their very name was a weapon, their family crest a banner that declared authority before a word was spoken. Even when their fortunes faltered, their reputation bought them time to rebuild, to regain influence, to recover their position. Wealth alone cannot do this. A man rich today but forgotten tomorrow leaves nothing behind, but a man whose reputation endures leaves a shield for his descendants. Reputation once secured must be cultivated. It is not enough to rest on the glory of the past. Every generation must add to it, strengthen it, and polish it. The moment a family neglects its name, its enemies will seize the opportunity to stain it. And once stained, even vast sums of wealth cannot easily cleanse it. This is why the wise treat reputation not as decoration, but as capital. Capital that grows interest across generations. Most men believe that to pass coins to their children is to secure their future, but they misunderstand the nature of fortune. Money alone is fragile. It can be wasted, stolen, divided, or consumed. A bag of gold is not a legacy. It is only fuel, and in careless hands it burns quickly. If you wish for your wealth to survive beyond your grave, you must transform it into systems that cannot be erased by time. The difference between a fortune and a legacy is this: fortune is temporary, but legacy is permanent. Fortune dies when the last coin is spent. Legacy survives because it creates more fortune even without your hand. Consider land, trade, and influence. These are not simply possessions, they are engines of wealth that continue to multiply across generations. To leave behind cash is to leave behind a meal. To leave behind systems is to leave behind the farm that will feed your descendants forever. A dynasty does not live by inheritance alone, it lives by structures that bind wealth to the family name. The Romans understood this well. They left behind estates, alliances, and positions of influence. They secured trade routes and political favors that allowed their bloodline to remain relevant long after the original fortune had been consumed. Their true wealth was not the gold in their vaults, but the machinery of power that ensured gold never ceased to flow into their hands. You must think the same way. If you own land, do not treat it as property alone. Treat it as security that provides income, sustenance, and status. If you build businesses, build them in such a way that your heirs cannot easily dismantle them, but must instead learn to manage and expand them. If you establish influence, ensure it is woven into institutions so deeply that even after your death, your name holds weight in the halls of power. Legacy is not built by chance, it is built with foresight. Too many men seek pleasure instead of permanence. They buy luxuries, they indulge in vanity, and they believe that these displays of wealth will cement their greatness. But luxuries fade, fashions change, and what once impressed the crowd soon becomes forgotten. True greatness is not remembered in silk robes or golden chalices. It is remembered in the institutions that endure, the structures that feed generations, the name that still commands respect even when the founder lies in the earth. You must also teach your heirs that legacy is responsibility, not entitlement. When a fortune is handed to weak heirs without the understanding of its purpose, it becomes a burden instead of a weapon. But when heirs are taught that the fortune is part of a larger system, a larger strategy, they carry not only wealth, but a mission. That mission is what transforms simple inheritance into dynasty. The greatest investment is not simply in gold or land, but in permanence, in creating something that cannot die with you, in ensuring that long after your enemies have been buried, your descendants still live under the protection of systems you designed. Wealth left alone is dust waiting for the wind. Wealth turned into legacy is stone carved into the foundation of eternity. Every man dies, but not every man is forgotten. The difference between the two lies not in how much gold he held at death, but in how carefully he prepared for the moment when he would no longer draw breath. Generational wealth is not about living forever in body. It is about living forever in influence. To achieve this, you must master the psychology of immortality. Most men live as if tomorrow is guaranteed, yet spend as if it is not. They build fortunes for themselves, never asking what will become of them when their hands no longer control it. They mistake possession for permanence. But possession is temporary. Only systems, disciplines, and ruthless foresight turn a fortune into something that survives beyond its creator. The wise man, unlike the fool, thinks both as though he will never die and as though he may die tomorrow. This is the paradox that gives birth to true legacy. To think like a man who will never die means building structures that outlive you. Land, institutions, alliances, reputations. These are not fragile treasures, they are anchors that keep wealth rooted across generations. To think like a man who will die tomorrow means moving with urgency, securing protections, writing laws, training heirs, and ensuring that no delay, no negligence, no hesitation leaves your fortune exposed to enemies. The balance of these two mindsets creates permanence. Cold psychology requires that you strip away illusions. Do not imagine that your heirs will naturally protect what you built. Do not imagine that the world will honor your name simply because you once held power. The moment you are gone, rivals will test your family. Creditors will press them, false friends will whisper, and vultures will circle. If you have not prepared them, if you have not instilled ruthlessness, your fortune will be dismantled piece by piece. You must therefore prepare for betrayal as much as for loyalty. The truth is harsh, but it must be spoken. To build generational wealth, you must accept that men are selfish, that time erodes all things, and that fortune abandons those who fail to hold her tightly. The only way to resist this decay is through a psychology that treats every day as if enemies are plotting against you. And indeed, they are. This is not paranoia, this is clarity. A dynasty that survives is not lucky, it is prepared. Your children must be trained to think as predators, not prey. They must learn that kindness without strength is an invitation to exploitation. They must know that the survival of the family name is worth more than fleeting pleasures. Teach them that their duty is not to spend wealth, but to guard it, not to flaunt it, but to multiply it. The man who teaches his heirs indulgence breeds their downfall. The man who teaches them discipline plants seeds that will bloom long after he is gone. Psychology is the root of permanence. Wealth that rests on numbers in an account will vanish when thieves, rulers, or wars strike. Wealth that rests on discipline, strategy, and unshakable mindsets will endure storms. This is why the psychology of immortality is colder than gold, harder than stone. It is a way of thinking that denies weakness, denies illusion, and denies the finality of death itself. Conclusion: generational wealth is not built with gold alone. It is built with power, discipline, and the ruthless will to outlast death itself. Most men leave behind coins, the wise leave behind dynasties. Remember this truth: fortune may favor you once, but only strategy ensures your name is spoken for centuries.